Hey guys, welcome back. Going to do another installment of my 70s series of the week. Haven't done one of those for a while. This is actually one I want to do for quite a long time, and I've had 2 or 3 requests for this. Now, anybody that knows me and watches my channel knows what a Planet of the Apes fanatic I am. You know, I love the original movies, the original TV show, the old magazines, the comics. Got some action figures. Actually, got a whole shelf full of Planet of the Apes stuff that I want to get to someday, eventually. But for right now, this is probably one of my favorite Planet of the Apes collectibles in my collection, if not the favorite, is this run of magazines. 29 issues, all black and white, got some great painted covers. Started around August of 74 and probably went to February, March of 79, I do believe. For the most part, far as I'll kind of go through some writers and artists here, but for the most part, Doug Minch, if that's the way you pronounce his name, probably did almost all of the scripts. I mean, you had maybe 1 or 2 here and there from Roy Thomas and Jerry Conway. Chris Claremont might have did one, Archie Goodwin, John Warner. But for the most part, this was Doug Minch's baby. And as far as the art, it's a who's who. It was doing art for Marvel, and some guys did art for DC around that time. But you got Mike Plug, probably the lion's share of the art. Mike Plug, Alfredo Alcala, my guy Tom Sutton, Herb Trimpe did a few issues. He's one of my favorite artists, especially on the Hulk. But I'll go through the names. You got Mike Plug, George Tuska, John Romita, Mike Esposito, Frank Chiaramonte, Ed Hannigan, Alfredo Alcala, Ron Wilson, Greg Theakston, who you Kirby fans know did a lot of inking for Kirby and his later stuff. Rico Rival, one of those great Filipino artists. Walt Simonson, Gray Morrow, Tom Sutton, like I said, Herb Trimpe, Dan Adkins, Sal Trapani, Vicente Alcazar, Sonny Trinidad, Marshall Rogers, I think, did a page or 2 in this. Young Montano, Dino Castrillo, and Virgil Redondo. Like I say, a lot of the first issues had a lot of like stories and text, had some photos from the movies, and there was probably always 2 comic series going on at one time. Now, the first one was a series called Terror on the Planet of the Apes, and it was kind of set in the Planet of the Apes universe around the same time as Planet and all those early movies, and it kind of focused on 2 younger characters named Alexander and Jason. There was a young chimp and a young teenage boy. And I guess the gorilla antagonizer in that, his name was Brutus. But you had some great art in those early stories on the Terror series from Mike Plug. Like I say, in this first issue, I think there's a Rod Serling interview and a great painted cover by Bob Larkin, who probably did at least half of the covers in this series. So I got 2 issues here. Now I've got probably duplicates of probably maybe 20 of these, 15 or 20, and you'll be able to tell which is which one I bought originally and which one I upgraded. And probably some of the upgrades need upgrades now. So, but here's issue 1. A lot of the early ones were, square bound. That's probably my original. It's got a little ding on it. This is a higher grade copy. Okay, issue 2, more of the same. Another Bob Larkin cover. And like I say, these had 2 ongoing stories in the back. Or, in the front it would have like the Terror series, and in the back it would be doing a comic adaptation of the Planet of the Apes movies, which you saw later on. Marvel put out a color series of Planet of the Apes, just ran 11 issues, and it reprinted the adaptions of the first 2 movies, but put color in them. And the cool thing about when they were adapting the movie stories, when they got those, they were actually like the early versions of the scripts. So a lot of the stories in there are quite a bit different from what you see in the movies. The characters might look different. There might be a few little plot lines that are different, little scenes that are different. So I think it's pretty cool. So to me, you got 2 different versions. A lot of people might be hardcore about that. And, say, well, it's not like the movies. Well, actually, they were taking the early, and these weren't the finished shooting scripts that they adapted these from. They were like early versions of the movie scripts. So Like I say, you got another chapter of Terror on Planet of the Apes with the newer characters, and you got part 2 of the original Planet adaptation. Like I say, another Bob Larkin cover. There's a better copy of number 2. And there's yet again another copy of number 2. You know, I had 3. Anyway, issue 3, another Bob Larkin, great cover. Third chapter of Terror and third chapter of Planet adapted. This one you can tell is an original. It has been well loved. And here we have a higher grade copy. Number 3. Number 4. Another Bob Larkin painted cover. You know, part 4 of the Terror series, and also part 4 of the adaptation of Planet. Some cool stuff. I think this is the upgrade, and this is my original. You can tell, pretty beat up. Okay. Okay, we got number 5. This is actually one of my favorites of the series. It actually has a standalone story called Evolution's Nightmare. And it actually shows like a big battle between still intelligent humans and apes out in the Forbidden Zone. And at the end of that battle, there was like one ape still alive and one human still alive, and I think the human's legs were useless and the ape's arms were useless. So, you know, after a little bit of trying to kill each other, you know, feeble attempts to kill each other, they decided to work together, and the human rode on the ape's back, and he was the arms and the ape was the legs, and they ended up actually meeting a half human, half ape hermit, you know, and he kind of, you know, he was kind of ashamed of both races. And then you had another big battle where you had mutant humans and mutant apes coming in at the end of it. So it was a nice little change of pace from the adaptions. Really cool little story. I really enjoyed it. Yeah, that's the only copy I have of that one. I need to upgrade that one. Number 6, another Bob Larkin cover, part 5 of the Terror series, and the conclusion of the adaptation of the original movie. And I think the artist on the original, I think George Tuska did a lot of the art, and I think John Romita actually came in and did a lot of alterations on the faces. Now, you know, they had the license to do this, but they couldn't use the likenesses of like Charlton Heston and some of the other actors, so they kind of had a generic face, but still they had John Romita go back and do the alterations. Number 6, there's a little bit better copy. Okay, here's another. This is one of my favorite covers. This is number 7, another Bob Larkin, and this actually has parts 1 and 2 of Beneath the Planet of the Apes. And I think Alfredo Alcala did a lot of the art on that, and he's one of my favorites. Thought I had another copy of that, but apparently I didn't. So that's one that's in need of an upgrade. Okay, there's number 8, and that's an Earl Norem cover. Great painted cover. Part 6 of the Terror series. Part 3 of Beneath. And you got some photos of Roddy McDowall inside. This is a great cover. Nice little date stamp at the top. There you go, Dr. Von Chilla. And here's my original. I'm probably going to have to split this up into at least 2 or 3 parts. For some reason I can't get my videos to go longer than 15 minutes, and I've done everything that I'm supposed to do on that, so I'm not sure what's going on there. But anyway, here's another favorite story, part 1. And this is this cover is actually by 3 different guys. Ron Wilson, Greg Theakston, and John Romita, all kind of combined on this cover. And this story is actually kind of a standalone thing. It's called Kingdom on an Island of the Apes. It has a guy back in the 1970s, and he's actually like a scientist or an inventor, and he always wondered what happened to the original flight of Colonel Taylor's ship. Wonder what happened to Stewart and Taylor and Landon and Dodge. So he goes and builds himself a time machine, actually, and he follows the trajectory, and he actually lands, on Earth, at the time of the apes, but he lands on an island where apes and humans are living together, kind of like in a Knights of the Round Table. And, they were getting along, and they were like fight other factions of apes and humans together. And this guy's name was Derek Zane, and while he was back in the 70s, all of his colleagues and his girlfriend thought he was crazy for wanting to invent a time machine, so he just decided to escape it all, and he went back, or went into the future on Earth, and that is the first part of that story, actually. And it has some great art by Rico Rival and Walt Simonson. Also, you have in that one part 4 of the Beneath adaptation. And that's one I do need to upgrade because I really love that cover. It's got some great colors in it, but it's kind of beat up. Need to upgrade that one. Got to watch my time here. Okay. Another little stack. Okay, issue 10. Another Bob Larkin cover. Kingdom on the Island of the Apes. Part 2 is actually the conclusion of that story. More Rico Rival and Walt Simonson art. And you got the 5th part of the Beneath adaptation in this one. This is really a cool cover. This is probably my higher grade copy. But you can see the mutants and the Forbidden City. There's my original. Okay, issue 10. And this is a great cover. That's by Gray Morrow. And I always was a big fan of Gray Morrow's art, but that's just an outstanding cover. And everybody that's a Gray Morrow fan knows what great painted covers and what kind of great line work he did. Issue 11, like I say, it's Gray Morrow cover. Got another chapter of Terror on the Planet of the Apes, and part 6 of Beneath, I think, is in this one. Okay, here's my original. Pretty chewed up. You can tell I read these and read these. It's really kind of hard to pick a favorite cover because this one, like I say, they were getting scripts. The scripts that they were adapting from were some of the early versions from the movies, and this is actually based on a scene that was that never made it into the film. At the end of Beneath, the 3 apes, who and people that know the Planet of the Apes movies know an escape to the Planet of the Apes. The first scene you see is the ship coming up on the beach and the 3 apes getting out in the astronaut suits. But in the early shooting drafts, there was going to be a scene like where they had escaped, the Earth that was blowing up when Charlton Heston, Colonel Taylor's character, blew the big Alpha Omega bomb, and they were supposed to see like a bright white light out the window, which they talked about, in the movie Escape. But this is actually based on a scene that never made it into the movie. They were looking at the spaceship at the Earth being destroyed. That's just a great, great cover. Probably, if not my favorite, one of my top 2 or 3. It's issue number 12. That is a Ken Barr cover. Another great thing we'll have to cut off, this is Tom Sutton's first work on this, and he did a series called Future History Chronicles. And I'll talk more about that in the next video because I'm going to have to cut this one short. So guys, appreciate you hanging around, and stay tuned for part 2.